This is big. This is a once-a-year occurrence, and so we're really happy that you're tuning in. Normally, we do Beer of the Week, which we love. Now, because it's the beginning of a new year, the end of an old year, we're doing Beer of the Year. Craziness, people. Craziness. So last year we did this, and we each picked a different beer. Last year was our first year of doing Beer of the Year, right?
Last year was the first year, and if you're just tuning in Behind the Mitten for the very first time, so we've been on the air for a few years now throughout the state of Michigan, and we work for mlive.com. That's our full-time job, and we love traveling the state. We write about food, travel, restaurants, and beer. So it's kind of what we do every single day. We love telling the stories behind these Michigan breweries and distilleries and cideries. They're doing a great job. But you're right, Amy. Last year we picked a Beer of the Year, which was a lot of fun.
And it was hilarious, too, because I think last year when we did it, it was kind of like spontaneous.
It was.
And we had to just come up with it on the air.
On the fly.
Right then. And so it was like whatever was the most memorable beer for us.
Which was kind of fun when you think about it.
Super
you're
fun.
put on the spot saying, hey, what was your favorite, whatever.
And right away we each said one, we each said a different one. So I said Batch Brewing, their margarita, which is this crazy, limey, salty, sour gosa. And on the last segment said that I now name it as 2017 Slush of the Year because those guys are so crazy that they bought a slushy machine and turned the margarita into a slush. It's fantastic. Still, you picked a beer from our pick for Michigan's best new brewery,
Stormcloud. Yeah,
love you guys at Stormcloud. We salute you. You picked Another Day, Another Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's a Belgian strong they do, and of course they have that Belgian American style. And Brian is a great brewer there at Stormcloud, and it had to be something from Stormcloud just because. Although Batch was number 2, right, in our list of best breweries. So that makes sense. It was number 1 and 2 for us. So.
It did it on the fly that we both picked them out like that. So our pick this year for Beer of the Year is a little bit different because we thought about it ahead of time.
We did, yes. That was one thing different. And
we disagree on it.
Well, we do. Well, we disagree on it because we're just picking one beer this year.
We did.
But every time I kept thinking of a different beer, I kept coming back to this beer going, this is a beer that changed the scene in Michigan. And it didn't just it wasn't, I don't know if it was my favorite beer of the year, but it was a beer that definitely was a major player.
Right, which is the only reason why I picked it, because I personally am not a big fan of this beer. I don't think it's a bad beer per se, although I have had a couple that weren't great.
Yes.
Consistency is an issue, I think, with this beer. But this was a game changer in the Michigan beer scene, which is why we picked it.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get to let's reveal.
Okay. What is it? What is our Beer of the year for 2017 here on Behind the Mitten?
It's Old Nation Breweries
M43, of course. Which I'm sure if you have anything to do with the beer scene in Michigan, you've heard of this beer. I'm sure you've drank it. It is a New England style IPA. Once this came out, it kind of took over the whole beer scene in a sense, selling out. It was hard to get. But then this style, because it proved so popular, so many other breweries then started brewing up New England style IPAs. And that's what we saw as the game changer. Is suddenly there were a ton of other ones on the market that weren't there before. John, what would you say are the characteristics of a New England style IPA?
Well, I mean, obviously the New England style IPA, it originates from the East Coast, and that's where they really took off. But it's going to be a cloudy beer, so it's a beer that when you look at it, and that's why I brought these special glasses in so you could actually look at them, right?
Thank you for that. Instead of my red Solo cup that I usually drink out of.
But it's a very cloudy beer, and I think people misinterpret that, and go, "Ooh, it's a little chunky, a little hard to chew sometimes." And it can
maybe
be.
I'm not misinterpreting it. Maybe it just is.
It is. But
some brewers would say that that's the sign of a bad beer.
Exactly. I think that's what throws people off. But it has a citrus, I think you used the word tang one time when we were talking about earlier in the year. It's got that look to it. It looks the same color almost. It looks
like orange juice, and it tastes a little bit like orange juice.
Very citrusy.
And the thing is, the taste of it, I do actually enjoy. I mean, I do love the citrus punch. I love citra hops. I love the way that tastes. And so those are positive things, I think, about this beer. The problem I've had with this beer, I think, is one, the price. It's outrageous.
So for this 4-pack of M43, I paid $14.99
for a 4-pack.
For a 4-pack, and that's a little high end on your beer budget on the every weekly budget. But
you know what? I can't blame them. They've got a winner on their hands. Why not? I mean, increase your demand. And
part of the reason is because the ingredients they use are a little more expensive, so it's not as
I salute that.
Yeah, it's not as cost prohibitive some beers, but it can be a costly beer. When I asked the owner about what he put in, he says it's right on the can. And they put the ingredients for this right on the can, so it says malt, pills, wheat, oat. They boil the hops, Calypso, Amarillo, Citra, dry hop it with Citra, Amarillo, and Simcoe. So it's right on the can of what they use.
Right, which is cool. And hops are expensive and they're going up all the time. I do understand that. The other thing I have with this beer, and this has nothing to do with Old Nation, I don't think, but this is a beer that has to be treated well. All beer needs to be treated well. But this beer particularly, I think sometimes through the distribution channels, it can be left out. It can be sitting on a dock. Even on the shelves of a store, it might be there for too long, and it changes. And that's when I'm like, oh, because I have had a couple where I'm like, when I know I've told you this, it's chunky.
Yeah. It's chunky.
And again, I don't think it's Old Nation. They make a great product. I love visiting their brewery. I think it's really good. But you do have to make sure you're buying your beer from a reputable source. And if you get a beer from a store that isn't right, take it back to them and tell them what the problem is. Show them. They will reimburse you, number one, if they're at all a good store, and they will then talk to the distributor to make sure that beer is being taken care of. Beer is like a child. You need to love it, okay? You need to love it. You don't want it to get too hot. You don't want it to get too cold. You want to snuggle it, right?
I got you, Amy. Well, the other thing that's interesting about this whole thing is that it did start a trend not only with other breweries, but also a series within the brewery. So Old Nation has this they call it the New Orthodox IPA series. And you and I have sampled some of the other beers at the Summer Beer Festival, where Old Nation was there with their big sign that Haze is good.
Haze is good, yep.
They show off some other styles or other, riffs off the M43.
Correct.
And
so our backup beer of the year.
So if we were going on taste alone, personal taste, this would probably be my beer of the year. And it is the double IPA from New England, from Old Nation, called Boss Tweed.
Boss Tweed. Now, I like this beer better, probably because I just like double IPAs better in general. They're kind of my downfall.
Right.
If I start drinking them, it's trouble. But I love them so much because I love the bigger backbone. I feel like it balances out the hops a little bit more. It's just a bigger beer. And this Boss Tweed, I got to say, I do like this Boss Tweed. Man, when that one pours in your glass, you want to talk about opaque. It is.
It really is. You talk about tang. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a double. So the M43 comes in at 6.8% alcohol by volume, 65 IBUs in a 16-ounce can. The Boss Tweed comes in at 9.3.
Hola, kitty.
And the IBUs at 68. The other thing that's interesting.
The IBUs aren't really that much higher.
And that's why this beer took off this year, or 2017, is because it was a gateway for those people that are not into the hoppy beers. They don't like the bitterness of hops. This was an IPA that they could drink.
Okay.
Well, that's true. That's what a lot of people say. Is the reason they liked them is because there's an IPA that I can drink.
I would agree with that because it's a citrus. It's not a bitter. It's really the hops that they used in this that the profile they have isn't that dank kind of bittery thing. It's more citrus. So
and that's where the IBU
I would agree with you.
Number comes from.
Right. But the thing that's interesting is that this Boss Tweed the IBUs aren't really high compared to the M43. That's kind of crazy. Usually when you have a double IPA, your IBUs are up in the 80s.
Yeah, it's off the charts almost.
But you don't taste it because of the malt background. So all right, so that's it. Our pick for beer of the year is M43 for different reasons for both of us. Our backup beer of the year is Boss Tweed. Either way, Old Nation Brewery, you should go visit them. They are awesome. They have lots of other beers, even if you don't like IPAs. They do distribute throughout the state, but they have a great brewery in Williamston, right?
We've been there a couple times.
We've been there a couple times. It's really cute. It's really nice. We love those guys. So congratulations, Old Nation, for having our pick for beer of the year. All right, John, what other events are happening around the state?
Well, a couple things are coming up in the horizon, and you and I need to get going to this one. It's the North American International Auto Show.
I go with my dad. Down the D.
I have not been there. I was there one of the first years.
It's one of my dad's favorite events.
But I've not been there recently. Visit Detroit.com. We'll have all the information for that. If you're in the Detroit area, Cirque du Soleil Crystal, January 10th through the 14th at Little Caesar Arena. I still have not been to the LCA, so hopefully I'll get there soon enough.
Make a stop at Sweetwater Tavern for the best chicken wings in the state.
Gosh, I knew you were going to make me hungry. In Saginaw, the Temple Theater, they have the McCartney years. So if you're a big fan of Paul McCartney, this is a really cool show.
I thought you meant like the politician, but cool.
In Flint, the Whiting has an evening with Lakeisha Jones at January 13th.
All right, all great events happening across the state. Very, very cool. John, we want to thank everyone for joining us for over the last year and listening in from across the state. We really do appreciate it. Where are we going to be next week?
We don't know.
But stay tuned to Behind the Mitten to find out.